Still Poddable, still Poddable. The Boston Celtics still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh yeah! Still Poddable, still Poddable. The Boston Celtics still Poddable, still Poddable. Banana 19.
Beat Rob, Jim, Packard, J. King.
Still Poddable, still Poddable.
The Caesar on the court to get another ring.
Still Poddable, still Poddable.
Everybody in the chat now sing.
Still Poddable, still Poddable. Still Poddable, still Poddable. The Boston Celtics still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh yeah! Shut your ass up, man.
Daddy's always happy there.
Welcome back to Still Poddable, the best Celtics podcast here on Al Gore's Internet. I am Sam Jam Packard, together with Brian B. Robb from MassLive.com and Jay King from The Athletic. Together we are Still Poddable, the best Celtics podcast out there. We are a
Do you think you'll ever change the Al Gore's Internet line to the intro, or are you just going to stick with that one?
I don't know. I kind of just do the same thing over and over again. You know, people kind of like the repetition. Any ideas? Like, there's no bad ideas in a brainstorm, Jay. How would you intro the show? You don't really have a go-to catchphrase.
I come with something new off the top of the dome every time.
Yeah, but it's not really like something you're known for, and you don't come with a lot of charisma either. So it's kind of, each to each his own. We each have a role here on Still Poddable. I would say I'm the host of the Monday through Friday podcast here on patreon.com/stillpoddable.
Which is on Al Gore's Internet.
Correct, sir. Now you're getting it. Now you're picking it up. I don't even remember why Al Gore invented the internet. Well, presumably
Series of tubes.
Yeah, dump trucks and tubes. But presumably he did it to benefit society. But I'm not sure exactly the connection there. But I digress.
What was that tubes joke for?
I believe that was
I don't know what
senator.
reference that was.
One time, Senator Ted Stevens of Alaska was trying to explain to Congress what the internet was, and he said it was a series of dump trucks and tubes. And these are our elected officials. And this is probably 2005.
How can you say it's not? You can't prove that, because there's no way you can tell me exactly how the internet works. Maybe it is dump trucks and tubes.
Such a stupid, unfalsifiable claim. You're peddling utter nonsense right now. How can you prove you're not a series of dump trucks and tubes, Jay?
I can't.
Well, we can't prove anything then. What is objective truth? Is really, I didn't know we were a philosophical podcast now. Instead of
philosophical,
the best Celtics podcast Monday through Friday. I've just been trying to say that this is the free episode, and thus we are on the CLNS YouTube page and brought to you by Prizepicks and Gametime app. If you are watching our show or listening to the free episode and you want more of this witty repartee, this banter between co-hosts before talking about the Boston Celtics, go to patreon.com/stillpoddable. Now, Jay and B-Rob, this is the first time we've had you on the pod since what I said in the Poddable postgame show was an extremely fun basketball game, the Celtics versus Rockets. I thought it was one of the most fun, back and forth, high energy, high intensity games the Celtics have played this year.
I'll take it another level. That was one of the best games the Celtics have played in a long time. And if it had ended differently, people should have been super excited about that, because, I mean, you're down Al Horford, you're down Sam Hauser, you're down Derrick White. Joe finds out Horford is out 2 minutes before tip-off, allegedly, and then decides, you know what, fuck it. Kata Tillman lineup in the first quarter.
Well, that part didn't work at all
against the Houston Rockets defense, which is loaded with explosive, strong, switchy athletes everywhere.
That was the worst part
the
of the
Celtics
evening.
Score 0 points for 2 weeks and then played amazing. But I thought, given the it's rare when you see the Celtics, when you look out at their roster and you're like, wow, they have dudes out there that can't shoot, that are absolutely hurting their offense, that are cramping the spacing. That was one of the rare times, most of that game, when you were like, oh yeah, this roster dries up pretty quick, and they're actually playing great basketball to manufacture as many points as they did against Houston. And then the game ended, and you're like, what the hell just happened? How did Alperen Şengün get wide open for a dunk? How did they screw up that communication on the last play, which allowed Amen Thompson, who was phenomenal, to get into the lane and get off a little step back 8-footer for the game?
Can we talk about that miscommunication? Because, like, it was a late switch, but obviously you want Jaylen Brown guarding Amen Thompson instead of Luke Cornett, right? Like, the switch was the correct thing to do. It was the execution of it that was poor.
I would say, yeah, probably. But also, Luke Cornett's responsibility a lot of the time is to guard a non-shooter on the other team. And Amen Thompson is absolutely that. And I know he hit, I think, his 1-3, and he hit a million floaters, and he gave Cornett and whoever else fits. But that's like one of his responsibilities. I didn't think they should have had Cornett out there at all. I thought in that situation, what was it? 5 seconds left. They fouled with 4.3.
It was weird that Cornett and Jaylen were the guys on Green and Amen Thompson. Like, that feels like a weird matchup in general.
Why not have Jaden Springer out there? Why not have somebody who can
100%.
switch everything, who can guard anybody? But
they did a disservice to Cornett. That was a disservice to Cornett. Like, he had a phenomenal game, and he should not be in the hurt spot. Exactly. He had just
got hurt.
He was happened on that play.
Talking about his abdomen, and went off the court, went to get the trainer, and then it's like he had just given up. You could also add Porzingis in there if you wanted.
Right.
They subbed him off right after, like right before the whistle. Almost had too many men on the court, and so it was a very hectic, poorly managed final few seconds. I think a lot of that stuff happens over the course of a year. It's just happened a lot to the Celtics over the last month or so, and that was the latest example. This one, I wasn't as mad about it, though, because you understand why they're trying to switch. You understand, like, and if they hadn't hesitated, it would have worked probably. Jaylen would have maybe shut down Thompson, at least had a better chance to do so. And as much as I would have had somebody else on the court, like, the reason why Joe wouldn't go to anybody else, he doesn't trust the wings. He doesn't trust Jordan Walsh. He doesn't trust Jaden Springer, though Springer had a great defensive game against the Clippers. Like, if you're trying to switch stuff on the fly and know what the other team is going to do and predict what they're going to do and then react to that, you want someone like Cornett on the court because he is very smart at all that stuff. Instead, it just was a very unfortunate ending. They hesitated, and Jaylen Brown, instead of just being on Thompson, got into a closeout situation and screwed it up. And they'll learn from it and probably not make that mistake again. It was also like the one time they didn't have a timeout at the end. Like, Joe is always so good about keeping his timeouts and making sure he has enough timeouts left. And if they had a timeout, you could have easily, when that second of miscommunication happens, you could have called a timeout, reorganized, gotten the right matchup, whatever. Instead, they don't have a timeout because they wasted it on a challenge that was like kind of borderline moments earlier. And then you also don't have the timeout to advance after the bucket happens. So it was just as unfortunate as it gets for the Celtics.
Yeah.
They played great, though, most of the game, honestly.
It took away what was an impressive, really impressive, phenomenal third quarter from Jason Tatum, pulling 37 points out of the lineups he had around him there. And then, it looked like they took command. And then these fourth quarter woes, again, and that have popped up in these losses. It's like the splits their net reg in the fourth quarter of these losses, because I know it's not going to be good because you lose a game, you're going to generally lose the fourth quarter. But they've had some rough ones. But this one was one of those, like, at least they fought back. That was back and forth. Like, they were answering buckets. That Tatum went to the hoop, got a good shot there, and had a pull up. Like, a lot of good things were going on. But then, like I said, everyone's just going to remember the Luke's kind of follies in those last 11 seconds. And I think a lot of that, again, was he should not be on the floor at that point. And go ahead, Jay.
Even the collapse was kind of just it happened so quick. Like they're
Yeah.
up, I think it was 12 early in the fourth, and then it's like Tatum makes a great pass to Cornette, and Cornette could have just gone up and fucking dunked it, and instead he tries to pass it to Nemi, who tries another pass, and it's like,
Oh, that was one of the worst
would
segments.
somebody shoot the goddamn ball? And so obviously, like plays like that aren't going to happen a lot. Normally, you would never see Cornette and Keita both on the floor late in a game, but Porzingis was in foul trouble. Horford was out. It was just kind of a perfect storm of events that the Celtics had to go really deep into their bench and play some weird groups that they never do. And it compounded things that it was against the Rockets, who have an incredible defense, and kind of stumbled into giving Amin Thompson more minutes. And he's just been a blossoming superstar over the last few weeks. And so, like, I didn't hate the way they played, even when they collapsed. It wasn't a collapse where it was like, oh, they're doing stupid shit over and over. It was like, you know what? They tried to make the right play. They did. It didn't work out, but they had some funky lineups. Houston was throwing like crazy aggressive double teams at Jason Tatum. The one like execution part that I thought was bad was Jaylen Brown with like 40 seconds left when he tried to go on Tari Eason and got like a double clutch turnaround nonsense that just clanged off the backboard. That was, to me, like the only possession that really was kind of unforgivable.
Yeah, I think by and large,
and there might be another one, but that's
that was a big one.
Me.
Like Jalen wasn't a great, like Jalen played okay, like wasn't a great fourth quarter from Jalen offensively, and that was certainly the play that stood out the most. I mean, in my mind, I'll throw it to you guys on this. I mean, maybe we'll get to this more in the 6-pack, but like to me, that was the game. If we're just talking about the end of the bench here, that was a great test for the end of the bench, and most of those guys did not pass the test of like being thrown into a spot.
Well,
and
Xavier Tillman was. It feels like
big picture discussion.
Tillman, he should be done.
Right,
he should be like no more minutes.
Well, even more minutes. I'm
maybe center minutes. Maybe center. They haven't tried him at center, but they can't try him at center when Hauser and Derrick White are both out because
he's too small.
You have no wings. Like, and Joe clearly didn't trust any of his wings. He went big to Tillman and Keita before trying all that stuff. And then he eventually tried all the wings. He tried Springer. He tried Walsh. He tried Peterson. Everybody but Shireman. And, like, that was a game. But also, like, so I get Joe's thinking because you think you could trust Tillman and you're not sure you can trust one of the wings. And also,
try it.
But I just thought the Keita Tillman was like, that's too much. That's just too much against that matchup. Number 2 ranked defense in the league. You're never going to score. And then they threw Jordan Walsh next to those guys for a little while, and it's like,
that was the bad.
Do you even want a chance to get decent looks
out there too with those guys?
And it was like, do you know how much of a burden you're putting on Jason Tatum right now? He's literally going to have 10 eyes on him at all times from the defenders, and they're going to be locked and loaded on him. He will have no room, and it's like, Jason Tatum scores 0 points. Yeah, because he was playing with nobodies, and Houston didn't even bother guarding any of the guys on the court.
Giving him so much pressure. Like, that was kind of the most ball pressure I feel like I've seen Jason Tatum face in a long time, and that makes sense when you have, like, I think Scal at one point described it as like, oh, it's the all shooting lineup because we have Drew Peterson and Springer out there all, with 2 defenders. I was like, I don't know if that's the shooting lineup. I think Grandy tweeted this after the game, but like the Celtics normally when they shoot over 35% from 3 or over 58% with effective field goal percentage, they have a ridiculously high record. And they did both of those last night.
Doesn't account for 10 threes from Dillon Brooks, though.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to transition to. You leave Dillon Brooks open. Like, that was obviously the game plan. Jalen said it after the game. Like, the guys that we wanted to hit shots they hit shots. But, and this is a tweet from Zach Cox of the Herald, 12 players have set or tied their season high for made three-pointers in a game against the Celtics. Dillon Jones, 10. Dillon Brooks, 10. Gabe Vincent, 4. Derrick Jones Jr., 4. Trey Murphy, 5. DeJounte Murray, 6. Keegan Murray, 5. Russell Westbrook, 4. Julius Randle, 5. Jaden McDaniels, 4. Jarris Walker, 3. Caleb Martin, 7. Joel Embiid, 4. I get playing the percentages and letting the guys who don't normally make shots shoot, but at some point, they're NBA basketball players and they're going to knock down wide open looks. And I don't know. This is like a real reactionary. Dillon Brooks just hit 10 threes in a game and I'm frustrated by it, but it's just, when is this going to stop happening to the Celtics? So when are they going to stop just letting these guys shoot? And maybe you guys will tell me just like the percentages bear this out and you should just let sub 33% 3-point shooters take those looks, because in the long run, you're eventually going to win that battle. But it just feels like every night it's a new guy, a new random dude hitting 5 threes against the Celtics, and they just don't seem to have an answer for it.
So I think for the Celtics, this is going to be a Joe Mazzulla 2023 answer. It feels like to me a lot of those games, no matter what happened with those shooters, like you can get away with that if you just play efficient offense, if you manage the game with your offense, if you don't turn the ball over. To me, one of the biggest flaws for the Celtics in that Rockets game was all the turnovers they had, and that was partly due to the clunky lineups. It was partly due to like weird fits. It was partly due to the aggressive style that the Rockets play and all the athletes they have out there. I understand that, but also like the turnovers allowed Amin Thompson to get going. He had a bunch of first half buckets that were just transition. The turnovers allowed Dillon Brooks to get some easy ones and get in the flow. And then, so when you're in the half court and he's getting it and, you know, you're begging him to shoot, he's not feeling uncomfortable. He's feeling in rhythm. And so, yeah, like they should maybe guard somebody when he's that hot. But I didn't think they, like, a lot of it is bad luck, I think. And then some of it is bad offensive management. And some of it is, yeah, you got to do more to shut off that guy. And I think in a playoff series, like, they would. I don't think in a playoff series, like, they're just going to be like, Dillon Brooks has 8 threes. You know what? Let's see if he can hit number 9. I think similar to like what the Heat did when the Heat hit 20-something threes, the Celtics decided, you know what? Fuck that. They're just not shooting threes anymore, and made that adjustment. I think they would make a similar adjustment. But right now, with Kristaps back, with the amount of double bigs they've played, with White and Hauser missing, and playing Queta and Cornette and Tillman sometimes in that game against Houston, it's like you kind of have to make some sort of you have to give up something. And if you're trying to take away the drives, which is what Houston really does well, then, and you want to take away Van Vliet and Green and Şengün, which they did an amazing job of, by the way. Like, Şengün's their best offensive player. He did nothing. You have to give up something. And they decided to give up Dillon Brooks threes, and that motherfucker made it pay. That motherfucker killed him.
Made a lot of them. And
he was electric, too, just barking at the crowd. There was one time, I don't know if he might have been yelling at like the third row or something, but he turned around and started barking at the stands, and there was nobody in the front row. Like, it was right after halftime, and he started yelling at people, and maybe he was yelling at someone, but from my vantage point across the court, it looked like he was just yelling at an empty seat, like just so excited to yell at somebody that he was just screaming at an inanimate object.
I
love Dillon Brooks.
Past Dillon Brooks.
Love Dillon Brooks.
Well, okay, before we get to our message from our fine friends at Prizepicks, I do have to ask what you think of the Dillon Brooks flop, drawing the offensive foul into a hump dance, basically on Lucky's face in the middle of the court. because I personally
Legend.
thought that was
Legend.
wonderful. But the fine folks of the Still Poddable chat found it to be rather annoying and did not like it, which I understand. But to me, that's just entertainment. That's just him being a good wrestling foil. That's fantastic stuff.
It was a great night for intensity. Don't you want all that stuff? Like, don't you want Kristaps, Duncan, and then like I think it was they rescinded the tech, so they must have decided it was an inadvertent chest bump of Dillon Brooks, but then raises his arms like the White Walker afterward, like just beckoning the crowd. It was amazing. It was one of the most entertaining games I've seen all season. It was awesome. It was, and that's partly because Dillon Brooks got everybody going. Jaylen was jawing with him. Kristaps was doing all this shit because of him. Dillon Brooks and the Rockets, they're agitators, and I think the Celtics, I think it helped them. I think they picked up their game because of that. They really wanted to win. They played Tatum the whole second half. It was a great game. I love Dillon Brooks. Give me more Dillon Brookses.
It was a fantastic game, and if you're gonna be, trying to get some of that good luck, maybe some reverse the Celtics' bad luck, maybe check out Prizepicks. Prizepicks is a best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. It has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. All you have to do is pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long. At this point, just pick a random role player going up against the Celtics. Pick more on 3-pointers made, and you're probably going to make some money. If you want to make even more money, you can sign up today and use the promo code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play $5. Download the app, use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. Now, B-Rob, like I obviously not a fun way to lose a basketball game, but as Jay said, if we're being pure Kaizen warriors here, I felt like the process was really solid. They came to play. Like, where is your level of, I guess, concern about the Celtics now, taking into context they went 3-1 on the road trip. Obviously, they had the kind of the schedule loss there, and then came back and had a pretty competitive game against what is the second best team in the Western Conference. Just in terms of like their level of compete, their level of engagement in this season, what's your kind of outlook on the Celtics right now?
Yeah, it's trending more positive than I think last time we were all together a week or two ago. That game Monday night, if without the last 6 weeks of like up and down, that's like a fine like moral victory loss, because that Houston team is playing as well as anyone in the league right now. They were pretty close to at 100%, and you were down 3 critical guys and were playing wild lineups, and you still were right there, and the offense was right there. So was it the perfect game? No, by any means, but that was reflective. Like, you played a lot better in that loss than you have in a lot of wins over the last 6 weeks, and by and large, with that combined with the trip, I think you're certainly trending the right way. Albeit there's some, fixes you still need to be in order there. And the fact that is that their 9th loss at home this year? Like, that is a list. I'll be like, all right, what's going on here?
That's a part I'm concerned about, because like, obviously last year aside, if you look at this core, the history of this core, and maybe it's not even fair to look at the history of this core without Kristaps Porzingis and Jrue Holiday, because they changed everything. But if you look at the history of this core, part of their problem has been that when things are comfortable, they can just piss away games. And that's happened in the playoffs. That's happened at home. I remember 2003 to 2023, after, they almost came back from 3-0, lost to the Heat. Brad Stevens sat up in his post-game press conference, was like, all these questions you're going to ask me are fair, but at the end of the day, if we had just won more than 50% of our playoff games at home, we'd still be playing. We'd be in the finals.
Right.
And that was like, this group, sometimes they need to have their asses kicked. Sometimes they need to have their backs against the wall. sometimes when everything is going well, they just can't find the energy, the rhythm, whatever. And so that's concerning that that's popping up again, that the home losses are popping up again, that the fourth quarter issues are popping up again, that the blowing double-digit leads stuff is popping up again. And you don't want that to become habitual. You want them to snap out of that. I think Celtics fans should really want to see the Celtics string together some good games at home. And obviously, I think they played great against the Rockets, but you piss away that game, and you do have to kind of reestablish a dominance at home, because last year it didn't matter. Like, things were going well, things were going poorly. They were on the road, they were at home, they were against great teams, they were against terrible teams. They were the same team, and they haven't been that this season. They typically rise to the challenge, it feels like, but they've tricked away some games at home, and way too many games at home lately.
Well, if you want to see the Boston Celtics, maybe turn it around at home, I would suggest downloading the Gametime app. Gametime is the best place for you to get tickets to live events, whether it be Celtics games, whether it be the theater. Jay, what's the last musical you've seen using the Gametime app? Newsies? Was it Newsies? I bet it was Newsies. You can go
Les
to the
Miserables.
You can go see Les Miserables. You can go to see comedy shows, concerts, and that's all with the Gametime app. It's just an easy way to do everything on the one app. Hamilton's another musical, Jay. Let's keep going. Have you seen The Wiz yet? No?
I don't know what The Wiz is.
On the Gametime app.
Nobody beats it, though.
The Wiz is, I was trying to say Wicked, but The Wiz is like the Michael Jackson kind of like black version of The Wizard of Oz. Have you ever heard the song Ease On Down the Road? No? Nope. Well, if you want to see a performance
Sing it for me.
Michael Jackson, ease on down the road. Nothing?
Yeah, that's not gonna trigger anything.
No. Well,
except nightmares and maybe suicidal thoughts.
B-Rob, good luck editing this Gametime read out, because got a little bit sideways here. But Gametime, it's got the best way to find your tickets for the best value, all in pricing, so you know exactly what you're paying. You can see views from your seats, and there's 110%. If you find lower tickets somewhere else, Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Go see The Wiz. Have yourself a great time.
You don't.
It's been a while since we've heard that music. That is the Poddable six-pack intro. Jay, I already forget the exact topic that we are drafting right now, but we will do a snake draft. I believe it was 6 things that we want to see the Celtics do to turn the season around. Feels strong, but to improve upon the season. 6 things that the Celtics need to get better at. Or
you got to turn the season around at this point. You can't just play barely above 500 basketball.
They're 32-15.
Do you think that's going to cut it? Do you think 32-15 is the caliber that this team should be playing? Do you think that, what are they, 10-9 over their last 19 is the level that this group should be playing to? Or do they need to turn the season around, get their heads out of their asses, and start playing good basketball?
It's strong words from Jay right now.
Yeah, Jay's feeling
hard, and I like this.
That's why I'm going to give you the first pick, Jay. You feel like you earned it with that rant. What's the number one thing that the Celtics need to do to turn this thing around?
Jason Tatum needs to be great, and he needs to be great every night. He needs to defend every night. He needs to not have stretches where they don't have that from him. For all the other issues they have, and there are a number of guys up and down the roster who haven't been performing to their normal level. A lot of that doesn't matter if Jason Tatum is just fantastic every night. He's good enough that he can carry you when you're down guys. He's good enough that he can carry you when other guys are having bad shooting nights. And he just hasn't been quite to that level lately. And the way that he started the season, that guy was on a mission. That guy was just killing people every night. He was fantastic. And for whatever reason, whether it's he's dealing with fatigue or maybe he's got nagging knee injury, he's on the injury report for tomorrow's game against Chicago today by the time you guys hear this. Whatever the case, he just hasn't been super sharp lately. And everything else matters, but he helps everything else if he's playing up to his full potential.
In 14 games in January, he's shooting 30.6% from three. And that's just not the kind of level you need him to play at. And I don't feel like he's necessarily taking a step back for as a playmaker. It feels like he's still generally making the right reads, but in terms of contributing towards winning, I hate to boil his entire game down to 3-point percentage, but in October and November, he's averaging 29 points a game, and now in January, only 24 points a game. And so it feels like just making those from three feels pretty important. And maybe it's just going to the rim more. Like we saw, he didn't score in the first half against the Rockets, and he took, I think, 4 threes, and that was it. And then he kind of got to the rim and started getting in rhythm more. And so I agree with you, Jay, that just more consistent play from your best player will probably turn this thing around. I'm going to be real locked in on the phrase.
You say all those stats. The most important to me is that the Celtics are plus 3.7 points per 100 possessions with him on the court during January. Plus 3.7. That's just like a run-of-the-mill team with your best player on the court. When Tatum's at his best, when he's dominating games, when he's being a great screener, when he's being a great rebounder, when he's doing all that, it doesn't matter who's next to him. They're going to be plus 9, plus 10. He could be next. And you saw it in the third quarter last night. It didn't matter who was on the court with him. The way that he played, the Rockets were double teaming him out to half court, super aggressive. He was dribbling around the double team. He was getting into the paint. He was finding guys. He was getting the rim. He was not letting anything they did keep him from being aggressive and making plays and dominating that game. That's what they need all the time. I just feel like he's been let off the hook lately because there's been a lot of other problems, but he's been one of the issues lately.
Just a classic January Jason Tatum shooting slump. It's a tale as old as time. So, but yeah.
I feel like there was one year that he went absolutely bonkers right before the All-Star break. 2020, 2021, he went insane. Or maybe 2019, 20. The year, I think it was his first time in the All-Star game.
It was.
And he just went absolutely nuts.
He went crazy on a West Coast trip and had 2 crazy games in LA and was just shooting the lights out. But other than that, he's generally been not great in January. I'm on ESPN.com right now, and they have splits by month, but they also have splits by day of the week, which feels very unnecessary. Pretty even distribution of games played throughout the week. What do you think is his worst shooting day of the week?
Sunday.
Tuesday
is actually his best. He shoots 44% from 3 on Tuesdays. On Mondays,
you know what? Tuesday's a national TV day. I said that because I figured the competition was the best. Maybe he'd have a worse shooting percentage.
He struggles on Thursdays too. But he's a real Garfield. He's a real Garfield. He shoots 28% from 3 on Mondays. Not a fan of Mondays, Jason Tatum. Big fan of lasagna.
Is anybody?
Probably people who are really excited about every day, you know? They don't make daily distinctions. But I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there. B-Rob, your second pick in the Poddable 6-pack.
Second pick, I am going to use last night. That was in my mind, that was the final exam for the end of the bench heading into the trade deadline. And not everyone failed, but a lot of those guys
who didn't fail.
Who didn't fail?
Jaden Springer didn't fail. He knocked down a 3.
He hit on a 3. He was like he wasn't great, but he passed.
He was 1 for 3. I believe they were literally leaving him they were so happy to leave him wide open.
He was a plus 11. Well, let's just give him the credit. He was
because he was on the court when Jason Tatum did amazing stuff.
Yeah. So here's the thing: Jaden Springer is going to be traded, and Jaden Springer is going to be traded anyway. So he honestly doesn't even count in this equation because he's making too much money, and he hasn't played well enough to justify keeping him, regardless. But going down the line there, Jordan Walsh. We've talked about for a while. He had a few chances on this trip. Hasn't really shown much. Xavier Tillman has looked completely lost since the beginning of the season. Getting to the point now where not only is he not playing, now it's like, do we need to get someone else in Xavier Tillman's roster spot because we don't trust Xavier Tillman to do anything right now? I think that's a conversation that needs to be had. Why? Look at, because you have 35 games the rest of the season.
But you have 4 centers who are more than capable of playing.
One doesn't play back-to-backs, and one
even
is liable to get hurt at any moment.
Do I think they could absolutely upgrade? But I just don't think.
Yes. Do they need to? No.
I don't think that. Like, if I were trying to upgrade the roster, center is absolutely not what I would look. If I was moving Tillman and trying to get somebody else, or if I was pursuing anything, it would be a wing. And
I agree. I'm with you. Like, wings
and
number one priority. But I think getting another big that can upgrade Tillman should be a conversation too right now. I like Tillman. I was a big Tillman advocate. Tillman was great last year. I thought he was going to be hitting threes this year. Now, like, whether it's a 4 or 5, you just like, he's lost trust right now, and it seems lost. And it's hard to imagine him.
It's a heck of a thing.
Right. It's hard to imagine him like getting that back. And the team needs these minutes to be played by. They need to give Joe Mazzulla at least 1 or 2 more guys they can trust, because they're more beat up this year compared to last year. You don't want to wear down Al. You don't want to wear down KP. Derrick White's not the same. Sam Hauser's been dealing with shit all year long. So in my mind, whether it's via trade, whether it's free agency market, I want 2 fresh bodies in here in the next few weeks. And I don't know, Tillman doesn't necessarily have to be the guy out. Like, maybe he's going to come in handy defensively down the line, but like, clearly you're going to fill the last roster spot, but you'd certainly need another wing now, because Walsh, Shireman, Drew Peterson's, like, you need someone there so you're not playing Tillman Queta double bigs against the Houston Rockets.
Or you just need to not play Tillman Queta. I think, like,
right, but who are you going to play, though? Who are you going to play?
But here's the thing. I think if Tillman and Queta hadn't played together last night, your view of the entire bench might be different.
So if they went to Springer, Peterson out of the gate?
If they went to just normal
I still want
and
more.
Didn't waste however many minutes scoring 0 points. I actually think, and I think Joe mismanaged that. I think he should have played Peterson. I think he should have played like Springer. I think he should have played
more Walsh.
He should have tried those guys earlier, instead of you go through this disgusting stretch with your two of your worst offensive players on the court in Queta and Tillman, and shit just looks gross. Just gross.
I think I agree. Like, it was mismanaged. I think we've seen a long enough sample size of the wing situation now where that's an area where you need to upgrade.
So you just want someone who can soak up minutes for the rest of the regular season, basically?
Exactly. I think because getting so Tatum doesn't have to play 42 minutes. Like, they're wearing too much up and down the roster. Joe has 10 guys he trusts right now when everyone's healthy, and 2 of those guys are Cornette and Queta. And so you need to go down the line.
Has been given like an actual chance to earn that spot, because he's a wing. Plays defense. He's knocked down some threes while he's been playing. It's just like, it's just curious to me that Joe doesn't have the faith in him. And it's also weird to me that Joe's just like trying random, like, it worked with Jaden Springer against the Clippers, but like, it was Peterson a month ago. Just one guy hasn't earned that spot yet. And so hopefully you can bring in someone to upgrade the roster who's, I guess, better or more reliable at this point. But like, it feels weird that, and I feel like Walsh is the main person who would get that role. It just feels like he hasn't given a chance of like, all right, here's going to be like 5 games in a row where we're going to play you 6-7 minutes off the bench. We're going to at least give you a stretch there in the second quarter to try and do something. No one guy has really gotten that chance once the
nobody's earned it either.
No one's earned. No one's taken that opportunity. Like, Walsh has gotten stints, has played in the last 5 games. Like, 4 of those, one of those is garbage time, but he hasn't done anything in these games where you're like, oh, Jordan Walsh, he's getting after it tonight. And offensively, we know that's always going to be the weak spot. And I don't know, in my mind, this season is too important right now. It's like, you just need, if Joe doesn't trust this guy and these guys in February, then like give him some guys to get them to the finish line of the regular season and to take the minutes off of him, and then maybe if injuries happen in the playoffs and you're down a couple bodies, you trust them more than Jordan Walsh. I think those guys are out there. Again, it's not going to be any really sexy names, but we've gotten to the point where it's not all their fault. They have, like to your point, Packard, Walsh hasn't been given a ton of opportunities, but no one has really come out and looked like they deserve the minutes. And so this season's too important now. Get another body or two in here to upgrade the wing, potentially give more protection for the bigs. And so that way you can actually get to the finish line without wearing someone out to get and stay on the 2 seed.
Authoritative. B-Rob.
That's what I want.
I liked it. All right, my first pick. Jaylen Brown is shooting from 2 points from inside the arc, his worst percentage since he was his 3rd year in the league. And I thought one of the biggest steps he had made in the past 2 years was just his ability to score, not necessarily in the restricted area, but just get buckets in the paint, playing off 2 feet, his fadeaway game, just generating offense in that way. He was 57% each of the last 2 years. This year, he's shooting 51% from 2. And I just think that's a major strength of his game. And I don't know why he's necessarily gotten away from it, but I feel like that was a major just way the Celtics could score points. It feels like they played a lot of kind of more so isolation basketball, but it doesn't feel like Jaylen Brown is carrying or living up to his side of the bargain on this just from 2-point percentage. And he's still averaging 23 points a game, kind of the same thing was last year, but he's just not nearly as efficient. And I'm not sure exactly what the issue is and why it feels like he's taking less of those shots. But Jaylen Brown getting to the paint and scoring, I would just like to see him kind of get to the efficiency he was last 2 seasons.
Feels like it's all long twos. It's all mid-range. It's all like at the rim, he's shooting the exact same percentage that he did last season. He's shooting 42% on short mid-range compared to 50% last season. He's shooting 38% on long mid-range compared to 46% last season. Overall mid-range, he's shooting 41% compared to 48% last season. And last seasons were sparkling, but this season has been underperforming what he's done for a long time. So I do think it will come around. I don't think this is like a super big problem to worry about. But his shot making inside the arc has definitely been missing. So especially last year, he was unbelievable at those shots. Last year, it was like almost automatic when he went to his little mid-range fadeaway.
Do you have his attempt rate or shot rate from those locations? Because it just feels like he's taking less shots in the paint, and that's something he was excellent at, especially last year.
So his rim percentage of shots at the rim has gone down from 34% to 31% this season. That could be attributed somewhat to his boost in free throw rate. I don't know exactly where he's at now in that, but I'm sure some of that is the free throw rate. So there's not like a huge change, but yeah, is
he gonna make the All-Star team?
That was my next question. I was just listening to NBA podcasts with the Ringer group chat with Big Waz, Justin Verrier, and Rob Mahoney, and they're listing their East All-Stars, and all of them were just like, yeah, Jaylen Brown's an All-Star. And I was gobsmacked. I was shocked because I just don't think he's an All-Star this year.
Status.
Yeah, it is. You won MVP last year.
Well, I mean, who would you put over him?
Don't make me do the exercise where I actually have to be accountable for my take.
This is where you have to
forwards.
decide.
So it's forwards in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't even done this exercise right now, so I couldn't.
Are reserves even?
It's voted on by
positions anymore.
It's positions, and then there's a wild card spot, and it's just forwards and guards. So I think it's like he's like Bam Adebayo's having a down year. I don't know. We can go through the entire thing. I just based on reputation alone, he's just going to make it. I just don't think he's played like an all-star this year. He's just not at the same level he was the past 2 seasons. And maybe if you make the All-Star game 2 years in a row, it's like Derek Jeter winning Gold Gloves. You just you continue getting that accolade. But
I'm asking you who you would put over him because you're making these declarations that he's not an all-star. I want to hear who you consider an all-star. Like you probably consider Darius Garland automatic all-star, right?
Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and
so you put all of those guys on?
I would put all three of those Cavs on.
He's outproduced all of them. He's a much better defender than Garland. Like,
here, I got a friend of the pod, Michael Pina, made his all-star selections here. This was his last cuts. And Jaylen was on his team coming off the bench. Lillard.
Cut.
Bam.
Cut.
Jared Allen.
I'm not putting Jared Allen on the team.
LaMelo.
He just got hurt jogging back after making a three.
Halliburton.
Has been better lately, but
Tyler Hero.
I can't. No.
Levine and Maxey.
Levine is shooting the most efficient. Levine's efficiency stats are fucking insane this year. Levine's having the most efficient shooting.
That's all
season.
he does.
Right.
Efficient shooting is pretty valuable in the sport of basketball.
It's pretty good.
He's not going to play against.
Not the toughest
Celtics.
field for Jaylen to go up against out of that group because there is like there's none of those guys are like
do the exercise. I can see it, but just like
that's why I wanted you to do the exercise.
Well, thank you. This has been a real learning moment. You're like Robin Williams in that movie about the teacher, the Dead Poet Society. You know,
that's a great movie.
Captain, my captain.
Oh man, I cry at that scene every time.
Jay's a big softie when it comes to random movies from the 1990s. It's very surprising.
I'm kind of soft. Today this is, I don't know why this came into my mind now. It has nothing to do with me soft or emotional or anything like that. But we gave my son, who's almost 10 months old, pasta for the first time. And I started singing "Still Possible, Still Possible." And
the new theme song.
Thought T Money would appreciate that.
Got to record that.
Did he enjoy the pasta?
He was skeptical at first. I think the texture he wasn't sure about. It's a very different food than he's had before. It was like, it's a little sticky when you're just like picking it up with your fingers. And so I don't think he really knew what was going on. He seemed to like it more and more as he tried more.
We got a sauce, or is it just a basic
just straight
buttered
up,
noodle?
Straight up. No, not even buttered. No butter. Unbuttered noodle.
Unbuttered noodle. There you go.
Just an unbuttered noodle. Nothing worse than an unbuttered noodle.
No. One of the worst things you could deal with. Back to the Poddable six pack. I'm going to start the second round here. My second pick. This might not be very, very Kaizen of me or very growth mindset, but I'm taking my criticism right at Joe Mazzulla. Joe Mazzulla is supposed to be the master motivator. He's the guy who's coming in with we're hunting like killer whales. It's war out there. There's no fouls. It's this war or death. And it's just all this crazy intensity of like, I'm the most intense guy in the room. We are going to be committed to everything. I fucking love adversity. I love all this stuff. Then why are you losing to the Raptors? Then why are you having soft ass losses to the Atlanta Hawks? Like, you're supposed to be this guy who's a master motivator.
Seems like this team you're talking about probably is a turnaround.
I've already conceded the turnaround point, Jay.
Okay,
I've already conceded that. But Joe Mazzulla is supposed to be this kind of like mental alpha, this guy who's a motivator, this guy who's like everything matters. And there's been a bunch of losses this season where it feels like the Celtics just didn't show up. And I know that's just kind of the natural human nature coming off a championship. Oh, the doldrums of January. That's supposed to be like the things that Joe Mazzulla thrives on. Like, he went into the season, it was like, oh, fighting back that human nature is going to be the thing that like I pride my coaching on this year. And it just feels like, where's been the Joe Mazzulla coaching difference in terms of motivation and like preparedness and locked-inness from this Celtics team? I feel like there was a steely intensity from the team, a business-like approach where they were absolutely destroying teams every single game last year, and we just haven't seen this year. And for a guy who Joe Mazzulla, who presents himself as this kind of like, we're going to defeat the mental game of this at all possible times, we're going to be supremely motivated, I think it's just a disappointing performance. Just when you're comparing his kind of public persona and what feels like a Celtics lack of complete buy-in and engagement throughout the first 47 games of this season. So I want to see them to lock in. And I feel like it starts with Mazzulla, maybe not getting too high or getting too low. Like they string some wins together. Win 3 games in a row. That's all I'm asking for. Win 4 games in a row. Like, where is this like domination that where's the attacking like a killer whale? They haven't done that for 2 games in a row. And I feel like eventually that falls on Mazzulla, especially when he has this kind of grandiose posture.
Get him. Get him.
Show him this.
Human nature's hard to deal with. Human nature's hard to deal with.
He said he was better than human nature.
I also think as much as he is that, he's also like, we need to let them feel as much pain as they need to feel type of guy.
But they don't feel pain.
I don't think he's coming in with all his best tricks after a few losses in January. I think that at some point, maybe it's happened already, there will be a coming to Jesus moment from Joe where he just lights into them all and rips them all apart and tries to get them back on the same page. But I think he also, as much as you were right about the things you said, he's also like, I think he thinks it's okay to deal with some setbacks. And I think, like, to some extent, his whole coaching philosophy is not to coach for necessarily a win tonight, but to coach sort of for the long haul. Like he tells us that he doesn't even tell like the end of bench guys if he plans to play them that night. Like, if you were trying to win that night, you'd fucking tell the guy and you'd have him ready for that night. But you're trying to build him so that he's ready for anything that might come his way, and so you don't tell him. And that's just a tiny, tiny example of how Joe treats the bigger picture like a far more important deal than the smaller picture. And I actually think, like, feels like they're starting to come out of it. Feels like they're starting to turn things around, get the energy back, get their edge back. And I mean, what do I have to base that on? Not a lot of wins lately, not a lot of winning streaks lately, but it just feels like that's happening. And when you talk to the guys, when you talk to the locker room, it just feels like they're starting to be confident and optimistic again.
All right. That segues perfectly to my pick here. And I turn to the great Lou Brown, manager of the Cleveland Indians, who famously said, I think it's about 30 years ago now, 35 years ago. Okay, we won a game yesterday. If we win a game today, it's called 2 in a row. And if we win again tomorrow, it's called a, quote, winning streak. It has happened before.
Just not for the Celtics.
Just not for the Celtics. Not for the Celtics in the last 2 months. They do have a 3-game winning streak. December 31st to the 3rd. But beyond that, it's been win-loss, win-win, loss, win. Pretty much dating all the way back to the beginning of December. And I'm sorry. Like, I agree. Like, they're turning the corner right now. But if you really want to turn the corner, you got to start winning more than 2 games in a row. And they've had plenty of chances to do it. But they've either had the schedule's been bad or injuries have come up. They've had excuses here or there. Now those excuses are essentially gone. The back-to-backs are going to be gone till the All-Star break. They are down some bodies health-wise, but the schedule is not is pretty forgiving up until the Cavs game next week.
Bulls, Pelicans, Sixers. That's a
win,
great
win,
place
win.
to start.
You want to shut everyone up? Win 3 games in a row, and then lose a game, and then win 3 more in a row,
and then beat the Cavs after that. No, don't lose to the Cavs.
Oh, don't lose the Cavs. Beat the Cavs after that. Win 4 in a row. Let's go nuts. Let's go crazy. Maybe 5. How many wins? How many games do they have before the All-Star break? Can they get 7 in a row? A couple months ago,
8
that would not
games.
seem wild at all. We'd be regularly counting out, how many wins in a row here? Now it's literally like last night, for instance, like, okay, they're going to probably lose this game because that's what they do. They win and they lose for the last 2 months, essentially. They need to, they're turning around. Sterling Lamp's looking better. They're getting healthier most nights. But now you need to start putting one foot in front of the other for multiple games here.
Put one foot in front of the other, and soon you'll be walking out that door. No,
I think
that
we
was
should know my song from The Wiz than we do your song.
that was some. I think that was one of those Christmas
You just
movies.
made up a song. You just made up a.
I'm telling you, the chat will know what I'm talking about. Children's Christmas might be Rudolph. That might be Rudolph.
Look at Grady's playlist for that.
I think it's Rudolph.
He knows reindeer. I'm pretty sure, but well, is that your final pick for what you need?
That was not my pick. Derrick White, Derrick White.
Pick.
How do you feel about Josh B calling him DW?
That just feels like Arthur to me.
DW was a tough character in Arthur, though.
I don't remember DW at all from Arthur, but
Scrappy.
I remember that there was a DW. I just think Derrick White has to be great. When they're at their best, Derrick White is involved. Derrick White is often running the show. He's being aggressive, hunting his shots. He's flying around, blocking shots, getting steals, doing everything. He hasn't always been that lately. And I found it. So after his big game at the end of that road trip, like I was surprised that like Jaylen said, basically implied that Derrick had lost confidence, and Joe was talking about like basically he just needs to be aggressive, and it seems like he just lost confidence. How you're Derrick White, bro? Don't lose confidence. You should never lose confidence. You're an amazing basketball player. What would you ever doubt in basketball? I just don't understand that. So got to get him right. Got to get him rocking. By the time the playoffs roll around, right and rocking. By the time the playoffs roll around, they need Derrick White humming again. They need him aggressive again. They need him consistent again. It can't be you don't know whether Derrick White's going to have 20 or be like 1 for 7 for 4 points. Like he for the first couple months of this season, he never had games like that, and lately it's been far too common. So maybe he snapped out of it the other night. Maybe a day off for him in the loss to Houston will go a long way health wise, but they just need Derrick White because he's so good and he just impacts everything. Like every single thing they do, when he's right, when he's active, when he's involved, he complements everything.
I feel like he's their bellwether. Like if you tell me how he plays in the playoffs, I'll tell you where I think this team's going to go. It's like he's been that impactful to your point, Jay, and that is everyone loves him. So I think he's not flown under the radar, but like in terms of how bad he's been for the last month and a half, but it's clearly impacted the team a ton, maybe more than anything that we've talked about right now. So that Dallas game was clearly big for him. We'll see if he can kind of extend it here into the All-Star break.
I do like that 3 of our picks for what needs to improve is just the 3 best players need to play better. I think that's good stuff.
That's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Right? If your 3 best players aren't doing well,
do better.
Great.
Do better. Listen,
do better. It ain't great.
It's the best analysis of the internet right here. The best Celtics analysis you're going to get. Tell it to you straight.
Well, we're going to end here. This is something that Phil Jackson has said, and I think Dan Greenberg, Stool Greeny, says this a lot. Phil Jackson used to say, championship teams, you can really tell a contender by the teams who get to 40 wins before they get 20 losses. Right now, the Celtics are 32.
Can we tell Grady to just tone it down with that a little bit?
He
I don't need the desperate 40-20 tweet every day.
Oh, maybe you need it after every single win or loss. But the Celtics are 32-15 now. They need to go 8-5 or better to reach this 40-20 mark. Jay, do you think they do it? Prediction time.
Doesn't matter.
That's not the question I asked. Just answer the fucking question.
It's the answer I'm giving you. It doesn't matter.
Okay, let me phrase this a different way. Over their next 13 games, what do you think their record will be?
Let me look at the schedule.
All right, B-Rob.
I'll pull it up right now. Home Chicago.
Win.
Road Pelicans.
Win.
Should be a win.
Road Sixers.
Win.
Should be a win. I'm going to be there.
Road Cavs.
Probably a
I
loss.
think they win that one too. I think they're gonna. I think
Four
they're
in a
turning
row.
it around. I've gone out on a limb. I've said they're playing better basketball. I actually believe it. I think they're gonna win all those games. They're gonna beat Dallas, and then they're gonna lose to New York in New York.
All right, so that's 5-1 at Miami.
Gotta be a win.
That could
Heat
be.
culture-
Who
heat
knows? Who'll
culture's-
be on Miami's squadron
Right.
after that? After
Heat
the
get
trade.
the post. Yeah, Pete get the Jimmy Butler post trade bump. Loss.
Spurs are
Loss
playing
bump.
with De'Aaron Fox at this point. The next
I'm going to
one's-
go bounce back win after they lose to the Knicks.
All right,
San
so that's
Antonio,
6-1. San
They're going to
Antonio.
beat San Antonio. Actually, they're going to trick one off right before the All-Star break there.
All right, yeah, they've lost a few of those. So that's all right. So that's
6-2
6-2 going to the break.
Then they come back, beat Philly. New York is a revenge game all of a sudden. Toronto is a revenge game.
Boom, there you go. You got 40 wins, Jay, before they got 20 losses. You
Boom,
just
there you go, Greeny.
Well, see, this is a good just today's episode was a good encapsulation. Is why you gotta think it out. You gotta talk it out. Because I was like, is Jaylen Brown an all-star? And then we had the discussion. Probably he is. Are they going to get 40 wins? Jay refused to even engage with the question, but then we, get into the source material and we determined obviously they're going to get to 40 wins before they get to 20 losses. And so, it's part of the process. It's part of the Socratic method that we're all engaging in, and we appreciate all the listeners out there.
The what?
The Socratic method. It's the way of teaching by asking questions to your students and having them kind of talk through the solution so they can arrive at it themselves.
I had an accounting teacher in college. We had we had 4 students in the class, and she would ask questions and she wouldn't continue until someone had answered, but she wouldn't call on anyone. And it would just be silent for like minutes at a time while the 4 of us were just looking around like, I'm not answering it. I'm not answering it. It was the most outrageous class I've ever had. It happened every single day where questions would just linger unanswered. So she was a little too Socratic for my liking.
Well, yeah, but I bet you really know what accounts receivable does.
I did at one point. I almost became an accountant.
You also almost became a door-to-door nail salesman. So,
that's not entirely true. I was going to be
a regional nail salesman,
a regional screw salesman.
Oh, I apologize for my mischaracterization of your previous job path.
I would have been a damn good one too.
I doubt it. I'm glad you were so obsessed with basketball that it's a sick joke that you're going to do a profession that was not basketball related at any point in your life. But we're benefiting from your ball knowledge from your work at The Athletic. We benefit from B-Rob's ball knowledge at masslive.com. From me, whatever I'm doing out there, I'm sure someone's benefiting from it. If you guys have enjoyed this free version of the show, go to patreon.com/stillpoddable. Subscribe today. We have content for you every single day, Monday through Friday. We're going to be back tomorrow, right after the Bulls game on the Poddable post-game show. And we'll have another podcast for you on Thursday and another podcast for you on Friday, because that's what we do here at Still Poddable. We are a Monday through Friday Celtics podcast. We really appreciate everyone tuning in, and we'll be back tomorrow with more Still Poddable.
Still Poddable, still Poddable. The Boston Celtics still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh, yeah.
Slow down from eating and drinking and all that wild stuff.